Most men believe love dies loudly, but the truth I've seen after years studying relationships is far more unsettling. It usually dies quietly, in the small things a man stops noticing. I want you to imagine something for a moment. A woman wakes up in the morning and she makes coffee for the man she loves. Not because he asked, not because he reminded her. She just does it. She notices the way he likes it, the temperature, the sugar, the mug he reaches for without thinking. Now, here is the part most men miss. She isn't making coffee, she is paying attention. And attention is the most expensive currency a woman can give. I work with couples every day, men from New York, London, Toronto, successful men, hardworking men, men who believe they are doing everything right. Yet many of them are shocked when their relationship begins to feel distant, cold, unpredictable. They say the same sentence every time. I don't understand. She used to do things for me without asking. And that sentence tells me everything, because when a woman truly feels emotionally safe with a man, there are things he never has to ask her. Not because she is trying to impress him, not because she is performing love like a checklist, but because admiration naturally expresses itself through care. Here is the uncomfortable truth most men were never taught. Women do not naturally resist effort. They resist giving effort to a man who no longer feels emotionally present. When a woman respects a man, her mind is constantly observing him, the small frustrations, the stress in his shoulders, the silence in his voice when something is wrong. She studies him the way people study things they value, and slowly, almost invisibly, she begins removing friction from his life. She remembers things. She anticipates things. She offers things before he even thinks to ask. But when a man becomes emotionally careless, something shifts. The same woman who once noticed everything begins noticing less. Not out of cruelty, out of emotional self-protection. You see, admiration is not permanent. It is a living emotion that grows or shrinks depending on how a man carries himself. And the most powerful relationships I've ever witnessed all share one quiet pattern. There are things the man never has to request. Not because he demands them, but because the woman genuinely wants to give them. And if you truly understand female psychology, you realize something that changes the way you look at relationships forever. A woman's behavior is rarely random. It is usually a reflection of how safe, respected, and emotionally drawn she feels toward the man standing in front of her. And once you understand that, you stop asking the wrong questions. You stop asking, oh, why doesn't she do this anymore? And you start asking the only question that actually matters. What changed in the way she feels about me? Let me tell you something that might challenge the way you see relationships. A woman who deeply respects her partner becomes incredibly intuitive about his world. She notices when his energy drops before he even says a word. She senses when something is bothering him long before he admits it. She begins to move in rhythm with his life, adjusting small things in ways that make his days smoother. And here is the important part. He rarely has to ask, not because she is trying to please him, not because she is trying to earn approval, but because emotional connection sharpens her awareness. Women are wired to read emotional patterns, tone shifts, micro changes in mood, the small invisible signals men often overlook in themselves. When that emotional connection is strong, a woman becomes deeply attentive. She doesn't wait to be instructed. She observes. And the truth most men misunderstand is this: attentiveness grows out of admiration. When a woman admires a man, she studies him. She pays attention to what makes his day easier, what drains him, what restores him. She begins doing small, thoughtful things without needing direction. She may check in when he seems quiet. She may encourage him when she senses doubt. She may create moments of calm when his life becomes chaotic. And these things are not dramatic. They are subtle, quiet, but powerful. The mistake many men make is assuming this behavior is permanent. They believe once a woman loves them, that attentiveness will always exist automatically. But psychology tells a different story. Admiration must stay alive. When a man continues growing, continues showing emotional strength, purpose, and consistency, a woman's natural attentiveness tends to deepen. But when a man becomes passive about the relationship, something changes. She begins pulling her attention inward, not out of anger, out of emotional recalibration. Her brain quietly starts asking questions. Does he still lead his life with purpose? Does he still care about growth? Does he still value the relationship enough to show up emotionally? These questions determine how much emotional energy she invests, because attention requires energy, and people naturally invest energy where they feel inspiration. I have watched this pattern repeat across thousands of conversations with couples. The happiest relationships are rarely built on constant requests and reminders. They are built on awareness, two people paying attention to each other, two people noticing, two people choosing care without needing instructions. And when that dynamic exists, something fascinating happens. The relationship begins to feel effortless, not because effort disappears, but because both people want to give it. Now, I want to tell you something that many men never realize until it is too late. A woman's quiet care is one of the clearest indicators of how emotionally connected she feels to you. Not the big gestures, not the dramatic declarations, the small things, the things that seem ordinary. When a woman is emotionally invested, she becomes thoughtful in ways that are almost invisible. She remembers details you mentioned weeks ago. She notices when your mood shifts slightly. She senses when something is weighing on you, even when you try to hide it. And often, she responds before you ever speak. That kind of attentiveness does not come from obligation. It comes from emotional closeness. But here is the deeper psychological truth most men never consider. Attention is not just about love. It is about respect. When a woman respects a man, she becomes curious about his inner world. She wants to understand how he thinks, what drives him, what pressures he carries silently. That curiosity fuels attentiveness. She begins thinking about his day even when he is not around. She begins anticipating moments where her presence or encouragement might matter. But respect is sensitive. It grows when a man lives with purpose and emotional stability. It shrinks when a man drifts into complacency, negativity, or emotional unpredictability. This is not about perfection. Women do not expect perfection. They respond to consistency. A man who is steady in his values, steady in his direction, and steady in how he treats others creates a sense of psychological safety. And safety invites deeper emotional investment. Without safety, a woman becomes cautious with her energy. She stops anticipating. She stops offering small acts of care spontaneously, not because she stopped caring completely, but because her mind begins protecting her emotional resources. This is where many men get confused. They see the change in behavior, but they misinterpret the reason. They assume she is simply less affectionate, less attentive, less engaged, but behavior is rarely random. It is communication, and often it reflects how emotionally secure someone feels inside the relationship. The strongest couples I've worked with share a simple but powerful pattern. Both people feel valued. Both people feel seen. And when a woman feels deeply seen by a man she respects, her natural response is generosity. Generosity with attention, generosity with support, generosity with emotional presence. That is the quiet dynamic behind many long-lasting relationships. Not pressure, not constant negotiation, but two people who genuinely want to contribute to each other's peace. If there is one thing I want men to understand after studying relationships for so many years, it is this. The small things matter more than you think. Not the grand romantic gestures people post online. The daily emotional atmosphere between two people. When a woman feels emotionally connected to a man, her behavior begins reflecting that connection in subtle ways. She listens carefully. She remembers details. She tries to support his life instead of competing with it. These things often happen quietly. And because they are quiet, many men take them for granted until they disappear. But relationships are not maintained through assumptions. They are maintained through awareness. Awareness of your own emotional presence. Awareness of how your actions affect the person sharing life with you. Awareness that admiration must be nurtured over time. Many men believe attraction is created only in the early stages of a relationship. Psychology shows something different. Attraction is maintained through consistent character. A man who continues growing, continues taking responsibility for his life, and continues showing emotional steadiness naturally inspires deeper respect over time. And respect fuels emotional investment. When that investment is alive, a woman often contributes to the relationship without needing reminders or requests. Not because she has to, because she wants to. That desire is the difference between a relationship that feels forced and one that feels alive. So instead of focusing on what someone should do for you, a more powerful question emerges. What kind of emotional environment are you creating? Are you someone who inspires admiration? Are you someone whose presence feels steady, purposeful, and emotionally grounded? Because people respond to energy far more than they respond to words. The strongest relationships are not built on control. They are built on mutual respect and quiet appreciation. And when those two things exist, many acts of care happen naturally, without negotiation. Before you leave this video, I want to ask you something personal. Think about the last relationship you had, or the one you're in right now. What was one small thing your partner did for you without you ever asking? Something simple, something thoughtful, something that made life feel a little easier. Write it in the comments. Your answer might remind someone else what genuine care actually looks like. And if this conversation gave you a new perspective on relationships, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a friend who might need to hear this today. Sometimes the smallest insights change the way we understand the people we love.